I was doing everything right on paper, training hard, staying disciplined, pushing to extremes. And while I hit physical goals, the cost was real. That experience taught me something that I carry to this day. You can look healthy and still be undermining your health span, but I want you to walk away from this episode understanding that muscle isn't about how you look. It's about whether your body continues to work for you for your entire life. Welcome to The Vitality Choice. I'm your host, Christine Costello, wellness educator, founder of a science-backed supplement brand, and someone who has spent decades studying and applying the science of what allows the body to stay strong, energized, and resilient through midlife and beyond. This podcast is about rewriting the narrative on aging. Each week we explore the everyday choices that shape how we age, from strength and metabolism to nutrition, mindset, recovery, and connection, so you can live stronger, healthier, and more vital at any age, because aging isn't the problem, decline is. And when you understand how your body actually works, you can make the choices that allow you to age powerfully. So let's dive in. In episode 1, I shared something that I believe sits at the heart of everything this podcast is about. Aging isn't the problem, decline is. And today, I want to give you the framework that has completely changed how I think about my future and how I see the people around me aging. There are 2 words that quietly determine how the second half of your life will feel: lifespan and healthspan. Most people have heard the first one their entire lives. The second one, most people don't encounter until they're already in the middle of the story. And if you're here listening to this, I want you to know something. The fact that you're asking these questions at all puts you ahead of where most people are. Most people don't start thinking about how they're aging until something forces the conversation. You're choosing to think about it now, and that matters more than you might realize. By the end of this episode, you'll understand the difference, and more importantly, you'll see exactly why that difference changes everything. Let me start with something I watched up close for most of my childhood. My mother was chronically ill. She was in and out of hospitals. The doctors had monitored her closely, and they adjusted medications. They intervened when her symptoms got worse. From a clinical standpoint, they were doing exactly what they were trained to do, extending her life. But what was never addressed was how she was living inside of that life. There were no conversations about preserving her strength, no discussions about muscle or mobility, no questions about her energy or independence, no real partnership with her about what she could actively do to feel better. So yes, they extended her lifespan, but her world became smaller, her capacity shrank, her dependence grew. She trusted the system. She believed she had very little control over her own outcome. And with that belief, her quality of life declined quietly and steadily until she passed away at 65. That's lifespan. It answers one question: how long can we keep someone alive? And I want to be clear, that does matter. Medical advances save lives every day. Emergency medicine, acute care, pharmaceuticals, they're all powerful tools, and I'm not dismissing any of it. But lifespan tells us nothing about how those years are actually lived. And if you've watched someone you love go through something like this, a parent, a grandparent, a friend, you know exactly what I'm describing. That quiet grief of watching a person shrink into their circumstances, of seeing capability replaced by caution and independence replaced by need. I share my mother's story not to be heavy, but because I know so many of you carry a version of it. And I want you to know that what you witnessed doesn't have to be your story. That's exactly why I do this work. Healthspan asks a different question entirely. How many of those years can you live with vitality? Years where you can move freely, think clearly, recover well, feel capable in your own body, and fully participate in your life. Healthspan isn't accidental, it's built intentionally over time. And this is the shift I want you to make today. Stop asking, how long will I live? Start asking, how well will I live? Because those are 2 very different questions, and they lead to 2 very different lives. And the difference is not luck. I want you to picture 2 people, same age, same city, same access to healthcare. One struggles to climb the stairs, the other hikes and lifts, travels and thrives. What explains the difference? We want to say genetics. We want to believe that some people are just lucky. It's a more comfortable story because if it's luck, we're off the hook. But the research doesn't support that narrative, and neither does what I've observed over the decades. The difference is the inputs that we provide our body: movement, nutrition, recovery, sleep, stress regulation, strength training, and purpose. They're not extras, they're not nice to haves for people who have time. They are the biological levers that determine how your body ages. And here's the thing I find remarkable that I've seen play out in my own body, in my own labs over decades of tracking. The human body is incredibly responsive, even later in life, even after years of neglect. We've been led to believe that at some point the window closes, that at a certain age it's too late to change the trajectory. But that's simply not true. The window doesn't have to close, but the effort required to open it further does increase, which is why the earlier you start thinking this way, the better, and why right now is always the right time to start. Once you understand Healthspan, the next question is, what actually drives it? There are many contributing factors, and we'll explore all of them on this show. But if I had to point to one biological system that sits at the center of Healthspan more than any other, it's this: muscle. Not muscle as an aesthetic goal, not muscle as something only athletes need. Muscle as a functional organ system, one that influences your metabolism, your balance, your blood sugar, your response, your cognitive health, and your ability to remain independent as you age. Research published in journals like the Journal of Gerontology and the American Journal of Medicine consistently show that low muscle mass is a stronger predictor of mortality than body weight or BMI. Let's let that land for a moment. You can be thin and still be metabolically fragile. You can look fine from the outside and still be losing the internal foundation that keeps your body resilient. Muscle protects against that. When I began lifting weights in my early 30s, I had no idea I was investing in my health span. I just knew I felt stronger and more capable and more confident in my body. And then in my 40s, I competed as a natural figure athlete. And then that experience deepened my understanding of what muscle requires and what it gives back. Now in my mid 50s, I carry more functional muscle than I did during competition, with better metabolic stability, better balance, and better recovery. And my lab work, it consistently falls in ranges associated with people 15 to 20 years younger. That really didn't happen by accident. It happened because muscle protects metabolic and cellular health, and I've been intentionally building and preserving it for decades. We'll do a full deep dive episode on muscle after 40, what's happening, why it matters, and exactly how to support it. But I want you to walk away from this episode understanding that muscle isn't about how you look. It's about whether your body continues to work for you for your entire life. Now let's talk about metabolism, because I hear this misunderstood constantly. I just have a slow metabolism. She's always been lucky with her metabolism. After 40, my metabolism just stopped working. I want to gently challenge every single one of those statements. Metabolism is not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with and stuck with. It's not luck. Metabolism is your body's ability to efficiently use energy. That's it. It's how well your body takes in fuel, converts it into energy, uses it in the right tissues, and clears it without chaos. A metabolically healthy body knows what to do with food. A metabolically struggling body shows the strain through fatigue and cravings, inflammation, weight shifts, and brain fog, long before disease ever appears on a standard lab panel. So here's what the research actually shows. Metabolism doesn't slow primarily because of age. It slows because muscle mass decreases, movement decreases, recovery declines, and blood sugar becomes dysregulated over time. That's really not bad luck. That's biology responding to lifestyle. And if lifestyle can cause it, lifestyle can also change it. I've lived this. Up until my early 30s, I was really sedentary, deconditioned. I couldn't hike for more than 10 or 15 minutes without struggling. I had hormonal disruptions through my competition years that took real time and intention to heal. And today, my metabolic labs, insulin sensitivity, lipid profile, inflammatory markers, glucose regulation, are constantly in optimal ranges for someone far younger. Metabolism responds. It responds to muscle, to movement, to recovery and to consistency. So if you've been telling yourself you've just had a bad metabolism, I want you to consider a different story. Your metabolism is waiting for better and consistent inputs. We live in a culture that celebrates grinding, pushing harder, doing more, but biologically, that mindset works directly against health span, especially as we age. So here's a truth that took me years of personal experience to fully internalize. Progress doesn't happen when you put in the effort. Progress happens during recovery. Muscle isn't built when you lift the weight, it's built when you recover from lifting the weight. Metabolic stability doesn't improve during stress, it improves when your nervous system feels safe enough to adapt. I learned this the hard way during my competition years. I was doing everything right on paper, training hard, staying disciplined, pushing to extremes. And while I hit physical goals, the cost was real. My recovery was compromised, my sleep suffered, my hormones were strained. That experience taught me something that I carry to this day. You can look healthy and still be undermining your health span. Sleep is where muscle protein synthesis accelerates, where insulin sensitivity is restored, where inflammation is regulated, and it's often the first thing people sacrifice. As we age, recovery doesn't become less important, it becomes more important. Not because we're weaker, because adaptation requires more intention. Rest is not laziness, it's where the work actually gets done. I want to briefly introduce one more piece of the lifespan or health span picture, I should say, and that's gut health. I promise we'll go much deeper in a future episode because gut health is foundational to everything. Your gut is not just a digestive tube, it really is an immune organ, a hormone signaling center, a constant communicator with your brain. If your gut doesn't feel right, you don't feel right. When the nervous system is chronically stressed, digestion changes, nutrient absorption suffers, inflammation increases, and blood sugar becomes harder to regulate. This is why someone can eat well, exercise consistently, and still feel off. The disrupted gut creates a cycle. Stress affects digestion. Poor digestion affects mood and energy, which creates more stress. A regulated nervous system and a healthy gut allows the body to use nutrients efficiently, recover from your training, stabilize your blood sugar, and reduce inflammation. Calm isn't a luxury, it's a biological requirement for health span. I want to close with something I feel strongly about. Midlife is so often framed as the beginning of the end, the point at which the best years are behind us. I see it completely differently now. Midlife is the most important decision point in the entire aging process. It's when muscle loss begins to accelerate, but also when rebuilding muscle has the greatest return. It's when metabolic changes become noticeable, but also when interventions are most effective. It's when wisdom finally allows us to work smarter, not just harder. The choices you make in midlife don't just affect how you feel today, they shape how you'll move, think, and live decades from now. This is the window where health span is either protected or quietly eroded. I'm living this chapter right now, and I can tell you with full honesty, this is my strongest decade. Not because I avoided aging, but because I've spent years applying what I've learned and listening to what my body actually needs. Healthspan doesn't require perfection, it requires attention. Before we close, I also want to leave you with something concrete, something you can actually use this week. 3 things from today. First, ask yourself honestly, are you extending your lifespan or are you building your health span? Those are very different pursuits and they require different decisions. Second, pay attention to your muscle, not how it looks, how it functions. Can you get up off the floor easily? Do stairs feel challenging? Are you as strong as you were 5 years ago? These are data points worth paying attention to. And third, look at your recovery. If you're someone who treats rest as a reward rather than a requirement, that's worth examining. Sleep, stress regulation, and downtime are not extras. They are the environment where your health span is either built or broken down. I share all of this because I genuinely want this for you, not as a concept, but for your actual life, the trips you want to take, the people you want to be present for, the version of yourself you want to be in 10 and 20 years. That's what we're building toward, together, one episode at a time. Next episode, we're going to go deep on one of the most important and most understood topics in aging. Muscle loss after 40, what's actually happening, why it matters more than anything else, and how to reverse it. Until then, Remember, you have more influence over your future than you've been led to believe, and that changes everything. Thanks for spending this time with me today on the Vitality Choice. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you know someone who wants to stay strong, capable, and independent as they age, share this episode with them, because how we age matters, and the choices we make today shape the life we live tomorrow. I'll see you next week.